light of all the bullshit that's happening, well, Puerto Rico and Greece, the whole spiel, and as everyone knows, for the most part, everything that's talked about when it comes to economics these days is debts and deficits, debts and deficits, debts and deficits. So, hey, Canada, let's talk about debts and deficits, shall we? So, for those of you who don't understand, debt is the total accumulation and amount that you have outstanding money owed, or, well, it doesn't even have to be money. You could have a personal debt, but we're talking, for the sake of this conversation, economic debts. So what you have is you have outstanding obligations to creditors, to people where you've borrowed from, right? Now, when you're talking about debts, we have to always remember to break it down to what you assume as your own debts. So, if you go buy a car, right, you walk into a dealership, you take a car out for a test drive, you decide you like it and you want to purchase it, but you don't have the money, you ask for a creditor, a bank, whatever, to assume that debt on your behalf. You promise to pay them over a certain period of time under certain obligations and certain restrictions, right? At a certain amount of interest, whatever, however that works out. But you've assumed that voluntarily. Same with your home. Same with anything that you've gone out and purchased, even on a credit card. You chose, when you accepted a credit card, you chose, okay, I'm going to, these are fucking shitty even if you got a really high interest rate credit card. Hey, you chose to assume that responsibility when you signed on the dotted line. Because any private debts, everything comes out and tells you mostly up front what your obligations are. And if you decide, okay, I'm going to sign on the dotted line, I've accepted and agreed to the terms of this contract, well, then you're on the hook for that. But the kind of debts and deficits we're talking about, this is outside, this video is going to be outside of your personal debts. This is government debts. This is debts that people that you don't even know personally, people that you've never met in your life, mystical entities that pretend that they represent you, yet you've never talked to them, you've never said anything to them about what you want or your preferences, your ideology, your particular, acceptance of certain economic theories. None of this has ever happened, and you know this, but yet they assume a responsibility and pretend to be speaking on your behalf. So whether that's the Greek Parliament, the Greek Prime Minister, the European Commission, the ECB, the European Central Bank, or the IMF, or any of these idiots, they're not representing anyone except special interest groups that lobby to them or themselves. It's not like they went around to all the Greek people or anyone else. Government debt's not like here in Canada when they run up all these fucking debts. Not like no one ever asked me, hey, by the way, Bennett, listen, we want to fucking enslave you and future generations under a certain obligation of debt. Hey, no one asked me that because they know the answer to the question would be, fuck you, cock-eating motherfuckers. I don't want nothing to do with your bullshit central planning. That's what they would get from me. So they have to put on this pretense, this ideology, this religion of statism where they're pretending that they represent me. At least under the old religious ideologies, they had to hand around a collection plate. I don't know if you've ever been to church before, but I have many times as a young man. And at least they had the pretense of handing around the collection plate. But you know what? When they handed around the collection plate and they wanted money, to put towards, this, that, or this or that, at least even then, there was none of this pretense where when the plate got to me, there wasn't someone saying, you fucking put that money in the plate or I'm going to kill you. Or, you do this or blah. I mean, it was, if you have the money to help, we appreciate your help, blah, blah, blah. Governments don't do that. Governments are the worst religion on the planet because they just assume, take on that role and responsibility of using, your brain is nothing to them. They put the thoughts in your mind. Hey, if we got a program we want you to pay for, well, we just fucking create it and you'll pay for it. And you know what? If you bitch about it, we'll just you know, crucify you or lambaste you or deride you to the point where your fellow citizens will think you're the worst person on the planet. This is what the religion of collectivism and statism is all about. Is using false ideology, bullshit logic, complete mysticism to pretend that these idiots represent the will of the people. It's bull fucking shit, and you fucking know it. You can try to argue and bullshit as much as you want out of it. Even some of you fucks that think you're good little salesmen, you know, you might be able to convince a fucking a little sheeple with an IQ of 70 or 80 maybe that you, hey, look how superior I am in my intellectual. But you know, and you've seen, most of you have seen that, yeah, you challenge anyone like myself, Molyneux, Larkin Rose, or anyone else that has actual, or Peter Schiff, or anyone else that, you know, that could call you out on your shit, yeah, you know what you'll look like. Which is why most of you won't fucking do it. I've watched it for years and years and years and years and years and years. The mysticists, collectivists, central planners, and control freaks, they don't want nothing. They just want to be able to take people like myself and hide us somewhere in a corner, put us in a cage maybe, so that you never have to deal with us. That's the way they function. Because in reality, because if you had to fucking deal with me face to face, try to debate and argue with me, none of you will do it. And I mean, I've given more people in the media and the politicians ample fucking reason, excuses, and venues to go ahead. Challenge me any fucking time you want, motherfuckers. Go ahead. I actually want you to do that. Matter of fact, you could even put forward and present how much all these diplomas you have lying on your wall, your government stats. And I'll fully acknowledge, I got none of that. None of it. No bunch of, I don't line my fucking walls with papers of accreditation from some stupid fucking retarded institutions that says, oh, you're a good slave, so we'll give you a reward. Participation fucking award, right? Shut the fuck up. Try challenging me on genuine premises, genuine philosophy, genuine principles, morality, economics. It won't happen because you know you'll lose within a very short time frame. And then the gig's up at that point, right? But, and I'm going to wrap this up soon, but I just want everyone to know, when you're talking about debts and deficits, you're talking about what someone else has assumed on your behalf without you ever agreeing to any of those terms, and deficits is what they're, and when they're kicking down the can down the road or unfunded liabilities, they're saying, all right, we might not be able to trick you or convince you to pay for this shit, but we're going to say that maybe your kids or grandkids. They're trying to enslave future generations with these obligations of what they're trying to do, and they're hoping that by that time that these people will grow up, and they're hoping the education system will teach them to just assume those responsibilities without question them. And I'm sure they'll spend enough money, time, and resources to try to put that forth, but they will always fucking fail in that aspect. Humans, yes, many of them can be very sheepish, but it doesn't take a whole lot to spark their fucking fiery insides, their instincts, their will to survive, their will to stand up, right? There are some people that will roll over and just die, but even in the animal kingdom, I mean, that's actual natural selection. We actually want to weed those out of most, not just in the animal kingdom, but in human civilization too. So, let natural selection, let market forces, let reality, let common sense, let logic, morality flourish. And the central planners, control freaks, and sociopaths will be stuck out in the fucking left field somewhere where they belong. Maybe worse. Maybe they deserve a whole lot worse than that. But don't let anyone ever trick you into telling you that, when they talk about debts and deficits, and as if they're representing you, they don't represent you. You know that. They're just trying to assume that role, that responsibility, and hope that you will fucking bow your head to them and just let it go along. The Greek people said, by 2-1, fuck all you fuckers. But the central planners still try to put this shit and present it as if they're legitimate. It's out for the whole world to see that that's obviously not the case. I love that. It's Canadian Libertarian. I love liberty.